It's hard to feel connected when I can't see faces. Welcome everybody. My name is Brian Grimwood. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Recreation and Leisure Studies and associate chair of graduate studies for the department as well. So in that role, I oversee the graduate programs that we have in our department and work closely with Tracy Taves, who is with us today, who's our graduate administrator, and Sandy Hazy, who helps out with our graduate program as well. She's our department administrator. So I guess to start, I'd like to acknowledge that the University of Waterloo is situated on the Haldeman Tract, which is lands promised to the Haudenosaunees, the Six Nations of the Grand River. The traditional territory of that the University of Waterloo sits on is lands of the neutral Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people. I'm hanging out currently at my in-laws in Haliburton. You see there's a bright red-leaved silver maple. There's some beech in the background and some conifers. The land that I'm on here is a traditional territory of Anishinaabe as well, and some Haudenosaunee groups have traveled in this area throughout generations as well. So today our session is about sharing information about our graduate programs in recreation and leisure studies. We've got 4 panelists who are current graduate students with us. We have Arifin, who is a master's coursework student in his first year and is exploring the option of moving into our master's thesis program. We have Tassif, who is a first year PhD student and generally studies in the area of tourism and placemaking. We have Haley, who is also a PhD student in her 3rd year, I believe. Haley studies volunteer well-being in the context of community sport. And then Jalen is a 3rd year PhD student as well, and she's studies relationships of care in the context of well-being for first responders. I hope I capture those elevator pitches for each of your respective interests well, but we'll more as this session progresses. So welcome everyone. Thanks to the folks behind the scenes, Leanne, Lowell. Who else do we have here? I think that's the 2 of you behind the scenes there. Thanks for setting this up and bringing us together today. This is the Recreation and Leisure Studies session that's part of the Faculty of Applied Health Sciences graduate recruitment initiatives for this week in October. And so what we have is I've got a few slides that I'm going to go through that provides a general overview of our graduate programs, some key information for potential applicants and incoming students. And then we're going to hand things over to Q&A with our panelists. So I'm going to first of all shut down my messages so that we don't get any unnecessary beeps. Okay, and then we're going to share my screen here, and I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint slides. All right, here we go. And I find apologies, but I'm going to shuffle things around a little bit. I find working with this in this mode is a little bit easier. So we've done this before. Okay, so recreation and leisure studies graduate program. Here we go. Can somebody put unmute and just say whether they can see their screen okay? One of the panelists or
yeah, we can see our presentation.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so graduate studies in recreation and leisure studies. Again, some key introductions here. I've introduced myself. Tracy, would you mind introducing yourself and saying a few words of welcome?
Hi, everybody. As Brian said, welcome to our session this afternoon. And hopefully, if you're thinking about applying to grad school in the fall, you learn everything that you pretty much need to know to make that final decision. And of course, we're always here to help you through as well if you have any questions or concerns as you go through the process. And yeah, hopefully next fall we'll get an opportunity to see your names, if not faces, in our programs. And that's it.
Great. Thanks, Tracy. So Tracy is the brains behind administrative stuff for our graduate program. So she's a key point of contact for those of you who are planning to apply, for questions around application procedures, when you're, around questions around funding and specifics around funding, issues around like forms that you might need to complete. Yeah, so administrative related details is Tracy's a key support for. A couple other folks that I want to highlight here who are not with us today. I mentioned Sandy is our department administrator for Recreation and Leisure Studies. She has her hands in all sorts of administrative stuff, from undergraduate to graduate programs and curriculum to the general operations and budgeting of the department. She helps us with allocating teaching assistant assignments for graduate students, and is really a key point of contact for you as applicants and new potential students. The other person here is Michaela Paruccio, who's the president of the Graduate Association for Recreation and Leisure Studies. GARLS is their acronym. And I believe Haley, I know, it has been quite active with GARLS and some of these student initiatives, and I believe Jalen has as well over the years. So maybe we'll hear a bit more about GARLS in the Q&A part of the talk. Okay, so moving along. The Recreation and Leisure Studies, our department has a focus on enhancing the quality of individual and collective lives. That's sort of the mantra, the vision of our department as a whole. And our graduate programs have specific thematic focuses that build on the substantive areas of study that our various faculty members and students engage in. So those thematic areas include well-being, social justice, community, space and place, organization, services, and policy. And those thematic areas are key foci of elective courses that are offered in our department for graduate students. In the substantive areas of interest include areas like sport management, tourism studies, therapeutic, recreation, inclusion, and diversity. And so that's just a snapshot of some of those areas that our students and faculty focus on. This next little bullet I pulled directly from our website in terms of what stands out, how our department stands out. We're recognized academic, the recognized academic and research excellence of our department. Faculty is realized in the curriculum through an emphasis on critical thinking, problem solving, and sound application of research methodologies. The basic knowledge acquired by our students covers a behavioral and critical understanding of leisure, broadly defined. So we think of leisure in terms of recreation, in terms of sport, in terms of tourism, in terms of health and well-being over the life course, coupled with applied knowledge in business, service delivery, community organizing, development, and therapeutic recreation interventions in health and other care settings. So one of the questions I was asked to think about with respect to preparing these slides is what sets our department and programs apart from others. And I think three words captured my sense of what helps us stand apart. And those words are innovation, interdisciplinarity, and collaboration. So we have an established record of research excellence among our faculty and graduate students, of contributing new and innovative ideas to theory, to methodology, to substantive fields of like sport management, tourism studies, therapeutic recreation. We have a strong interdisciplinary background, so we have an array of expertise in our department, ranging from social psychology to business-oriented management to critical action and critical activist sort of work. a range of theoretical and methodological approaches that we engage in as a department that span the social sciences and move into arts and natural sciences in some ways, and collaboration. So we have a strong commitment to working with each other in our department, among faculty, among graduate students, but also with community stakeholders and colleagues at other universities and internationally as well. So we have 4 graduate programs in our department. We have Masters of Arts in Recreation and Leisure Studies, which is 2 programs, a coursework program and a thesis program. And then we have 2 streams in our PhD, the Recreation and Leisure Studies stream and the Aging, Health, and Wellbeing stream, which is a collaborative PhD program in our Faculty of Applied Health Science. So I'm going to speak to each of these briefly here. So the Masters of Recreation and Leisure Studies, the coursework option, this examines theories and concepts of leisure. Again, leisure broadly defined, so inclusive of sport, recreation, tourism, health and well-being. It examines contributions by the social sciences and humanities to the field of recreation and leisure studies, and has an emphasis on the application of these theories, methods, models associated with leisure and contemporary society. So a key part of that application of these approaches is a program evaluation dimension. So evaluating leisure programs in relation to various objectives that contribute to contemporary society. So students learn to address a wide range of practical issues related to leisure, recreation, well-being, and quality of life in a very flexible, interdisciplinary and course-based curriculum. So the flexible piece is really key, and one of the things that students in this program have really been drawn to is that there's a total of 8 courses, 4 of which are required, and then 4 of which are electives. We have core courses that each student in this program must enroll in and complete, and then 4 elective courses, which can be elective courses within our department or outside of the department. So there's lots of flexibility built into this program. It's 3 terms long, so fall is typically the start date, winter and spring, so it's feasible and designed to be completed in 1 year of full-time study. So again, lots of flexibility, lots of opportunity for students to identify their particular interests and explore those interests through their particular course design. And then there's a program evaluation focus. The Masters of Recreation and Leisure Studies thesis option is designed to increase knowledge of theories and concepts and the contributions by the social sciences and humanities to the field, to develop and strengthen research competencies in problem solving, hypothesis testing, and theory development. So it's a research intensive program. And to increase understanding of the importance of the applications of theories, methods, and models associated with leisure and contemporary society. So similar objectives in as a coursework, but with a research emphasis, an independent research emphasis. So students learn to conduct high caliber independent research with active scholars recognized for high quality and quantity of their published work. And are leaders in their field. The master's thesis program is designed as a 2-year program of full-time study. It involves 5 required courses, or five courses are the required amounts. 4 of which are core courses and required, and then 1 elective. So less flexibility with respect to the coursework. But when it comes to the thesis, you're working independently with a supervisor, a faculty supervisor who shares your research interests and can provide guidance on that independent research project, which is intended to make a substantive contribution to the field of recreation and leisure studies. And that thesis project usually is designed to take approximately a year. So with the master's thesis program, You typically start in the fall, your coursework in the fall term and winter term, and then you begin your thesis in the spring term, with the aim of completing that within a year, 12 months to 14 months. And the focus is on those thematic areas that I mentioned before. So leisure, health and well-being, community, space and place, social justice, organization services, and policy. Our PhD program in Recreation and Leisure Studies is an advanced research degree aimed at fostering high caliber research that contributes to the growing body of knowledge in our field. It involves analyzing and evaluating programs, policy, organizational structures aimed at understanding and improving the use of free time and quality of life. There's also lots of innovative work within our department among our graduate students that are not just analyzing and evaluating programs, but creatively intervening into program delivery and service delivery, into policies, into organizational structures. So informed by critical understandings of our contemporary worlds, students are starting to challenge norms and use their research to create interventions into those social structures and to disrupt norms, to prompt social change, to prompt social justice. And students are encouraged to apply and disseminate knowledge to practitioners, policymakers, and managers, and also to their colleagues in the respective fields of study. So lots of doctoral students are attending conferences, presenting their research to international audiences, to domestic audiences, academic, non-academic as well. And this program is really designed for students who plan to teach and or pursue research careers, whether that's in academia, whether in a policy or consultant context, government or private sector. And there's 9 courses associated with this. 9 courses beyond your honors level BA. So if you take 5 in your master's thesis-based program, then you're required to take an additional 4 graduate level courses. Typically, our PhD students begin their coursework in the fall term and complete that over. If you're studying full time, it's a 2 terms of coursework, so fall and winter. They move into what's called the comprehensive examination process, followed by their doctoral thesis research. So it's 9 to 12 terms long, 3 to 4 years full time, and is feasible to complete part time as well in 6 to 7 years. And I don't have a separate slide here on the Aging Health and Wellbeing program, but the Aging Health and Wellbeing program, as I mentioned, is a collaborative interdisciplinary program that's offered through our faculty. So Recreation and Leisure Studies students have the opportunity to designate their PhD program in that Aging Health and Wellbeing stream. There's students from the School of Public Health and Health Systems associated with that degree program, so we've got Recreation and Leisure Studies students interacting with and collaborating with faculty in the School of Public Health and Health Systems, as well as students in that program. And the course requirements are very similar, with the exception of a separate it's called Rec 750, which is offered in the fall term, and that's a seminar-based course for those doctoral students in aging, health, and well-being. How quick do I have to move here? Okay. What sort of careers can grad students from our program look forward to or anticipate? According to the information I've received, we've got 50% that move into academia, 17% into government, 17% into non-profit sector, 16% into industry, so private industry. A few examples of careers: rehabilitation counselors and athletic role models, senior vice president of marketing and sales for Best Western International, presidents and CEOs of iLogic, Director of Projects and Operations for RTO, Regional Tourism Organizations, Supervisor of Operations for Central Park, Executive Director of the Canadian Parks Council, and then Neighborhood Liaison at City of Kitchener. So you can see in just these few examples an array of opportunities that range from public, private, not-for-profit sector career opportunities, as well as academia. So for admissions requirements for master's students, students entering into our program require a four-year honors bachelor's degree or equivalent in recreation and leisure studies or a related field. So a related field could be a health-related field, it could be an environment-related field, it could be a discipline such as geography or anthropology, sociology, community development or community studies. Arts-based programs as well. We have a number of students who have music and arts-based backgrounds. So again, we value interdisciplinarity, and so we hope for and try to recruit students who represent that interdisciplinary, represent that sort of interdisciplinarity. And at least an overall undergraduate average of 75%. There's some flexibility with that, given your performance in your final year. So if we recognize that oftentimes students struggle with the transition into university in the first and second years, and their marks improve dramatically in the third and fourth years. So we take account of that as well. Competency in written expression, including evidence of ability to conceptualize, organize ideas and reason, and that really comes through in your a statement, a project statement or proposal statement that's included in your application. 2 academic references are necessary, and proof of English language proficiency. Particularly if your undergraduate degree was done outside of Canada or in a non-English institution. So there's requirements for a master's coursework and master's thesis are very similar with respect to the master's thesis. Students are required to identify a potential supervisor. And I would strongly encourage you to connect with those potential supervisors ahead of time, to reach out, to express your interest, to potentially connect with them for a conversation about shared interests. And so there will be some resources here on how to connect with potential faculty members as well, or links to faculty profiles for folks to connect with. For the PhD program, the minimum admission requirements are a Master's of Arts degree or its equivalent in Recreation and Leisure Studies or a related field, with a minimum of 75% average in master's level coursework. So the same point here about interdisciplinarity of fields. So ideally, students have a background in recreation and leisure studies, but if you're coming from an allied field or an allied discipline, in the social sciences, in the arts and humanities, we would certainly encourage you to apply and review your application favorably. Or we won't. Yeah, we'd love to see your application is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, and the minimum average of 75%. Completion of an MA thesis is important for the PhD. Because it is a research-intensive program, we're looking for students who have some background and training in research. And so our ideal applicants have completed a independent thesis project at their MA level. If you haven't done that, then there's still opportunity for you to apply and be considered. What has happened in the past is students who have completed a coursework-based master's or an MBA, for example, and want to pursue a PhD, we ask them to complete a separate research project prior to enrolling and moving forward with their comprehensive exams. There's a written statement that outlines research interests. Again, connecting with a faculty member or faculty advisor is key. You need 3 academic references for your PhD application, and then language proficiency as well in English. I just have a few more slides here before I hand it over to the Q&A and the panelists. We've got funding for full-time research-based students, so master's thesis students and full-time PhD students. Full-time master's thesis students are guaranteed funding for the first 2 terms of their studies, and this is typically provided through teaching assistantship, so supporting instructors with their courses, or research assistantships through their faculty supervisors or other members in the department who might be recruiting master students to help with their research projects. There's other funding that can be available on a term-by-term basis for these as teaching assistants for master students or master's thesis students, but also often research assistants will come up, again, with those faculty supervisors or department members. Full-time master's coursework students are not guaranteed funding, but can apply for extra teaching assistant positions each term. In my experience as the Associate Chair of Graduate Studies, we've done a really good job of allocating at least 1 TA position to master's coursework students, but that can't be guaranteed just based on budgets and based on number of students. It's also designed as a one-year program with a professional orientation to it, a program evaluation orientation to it. So the financial the funding opportunities there are limited there. Full-time PhD students, again, this is a 4-year program. It's designed as a 4-year program, and PhD students are guaranteed funding for their first 4 years of their study, typically provided through teaching assistantships or research assistantships. Part-time students at the MA and the PhD level typically don't receive funding. And just a reminder here, there's a funding your education session on October 27th, I believe. You can learn about external funding opportunities. If students folks attending the session have questions about the particulars of the funding, we can talk about that in the Q&A. In terms of amounts, questions around what happens if you get a scholarship, an external scholarship, how does that impact funding? Okay, so next steps. Application deadline for fall 2021 admission is February 1st, 2021. If you have questions, connect with myself or Tracy. Excuse me. Our emails are there. And then here's some highlights of different events that the university is hosting and holding in relation to graduate studies on campus. So funding, how to fund your graduate education, the change of date, so it's October 29th, not the 27th, as I mentioned. A workshop around writing your personal statements, 2 of those, one in November, one in January. A webinar on preparing your graduate application. And then final slide here, a little introduction to our panelists, Erfin, Tasif, Haley, Jalen. Great, I think that's it. I'll look forward to the Q&A, which I believe starts now.
Perfect. And maybe we'll just mention to our guests that you're more than welcome to place your questions in the chat box, and we'll be monitoring that throughout for our panelists to answer throughout. Brian, did you want each of the panelists to maybe take an opportunity just to introduce themselves?
Yeah, that'd be great. Sure.
So I see Jalen. Maybe we'll get started with her since she's first on the screen.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So is there something in particular you want me to talk about, or just generally introduce myself?
Yeah, I think just generally introduce yourself and any initial thoughts on your experience of the programs as a MA thesis PhD student. Yeah.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So as Brian mentioned, my name is Jalen. I am a third-year PhD student in the department, and my research focuses on the relationships of care, specifically therapeutic recreation in relation to uniformed first responders. I have done my undergraduate degree at Waterloo, my master's degree, and now my PhD. So I have a lot of experiences in the Department of Recreation and Leisure Studies that I can speak to as well. So if you have questions about the master's or PhD program, I'm happy to help assist with that. Yeah, overall, my experience at Waterloo, there's kind of a reason I've been here for as long as I have been. The faculty is very diverse in terms of their research interests, and they're very supportive of their graduate students. So it's a very welcoming department, which I really enjoy. And yeah, if you have any questions specifically for me, I'm happy to answer them if you want to put them in the chat box.
Perfect. And maybe we'll get Haley to introduce next.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Haley, as Leanne mentioned. So like Jalen, I'm also a third-year student in the PhD program. So my research, as Brian kind of mentioned earlier, focuses on volunteer management and volunteer well-being in the context of nonprofit community support organizations. So what brought me to Waterloo, so unlike Jalen, I've been a bit all over the place. So I went to Laurier for my undergrad, was in Ohio to complete my master's, and Waterloo is my hometown. So if anyone has questions, if you're coming from somewhere outside of Waterloo and you have questions about what Waterloo in general is like, feel free to ask me. But as kind of Jalen mentioned, the Department of Recreation and Leisure Studies is really unique. Lots of supportive faculty members that help guide you kind of through the research process. So it's a pretty collaborative department. And I've really enjoyed my time here for the past 3 years. And I'll let one of the next panelists introduce themselves.
Arvin, do you want to go ahead? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. All right. So yeah, I'll go ahead. So my name is Talsif Dola. I'm currently in Vancouver, BC. Unlike others, I have actually never been to Waterloo yet, except through my computer. So I'm a first-year full-time PhD student in our Department of Rec and Leisure. I take special interest in leisure and social justice. I'm a tourism practitioner myself and also a consultant. I did my master's in tourism management from Royal Roads University here in British Columbia. And since then, I had been actually taking special interests around what Brian just have said about placement and tourism. To be very specific, one of tourism's inherent capacity in creating a sense of place and using that capacity to help the newcomers, resettled refugees, to feel more integrated, socioculturally integrated into their newly found countries and societies. So my experience so far had been just amazing. I concur with what everyone has said, what Brian has said, innovation, interdisciplinary, and collaboration. Yep, this is definitely extremely exciting and keep me motivated with this particular program. And I also want to add something here is what I want to do with this particular PhD program, because I saw some of the questions around that. For my case, first of all, I really like to expand my research capability through these programs. And hopefully, I would love to take my works into the next level of social intervention and policy evaluation around tourism. That's it. Thank you. Arvin, you're next.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So yeah, I am Arifin Azam. Currently, I'm studying in master's department, master's in coursework right now. I'm looking forward to switching to thesis program next term. My interest is basically sports tourism from spectators' perspective. I'm working on studying virtual reality in sports. So this is kind of a new area where research needs to be done. So I'm interested to do that in future. Currently, I'm also working as a teaching assistant in an undergrad course of Introduction to Event Studies. So my undergraduate course was Tourism and Hospitality Management. I have completed that in University of Dhaka. I'm coming from Bangladesh. Last year I came from Bangladesh, and I was looking to get into an university that is excellent in this field, tourism and hospitality, as well as recreation and leisure. So I found out about University of Waterloo and this department. So I've applied. Since then, the communication has been excellent with Tracy, Sandy, Brian. Whenever I ask something, they always came back to me and give me the information I need. So I'd like to learn from them, and also would ask any kind of question that you see me as a fit to answer that. So I'd like to help you with that. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks to the four of you. Okay, so we have some questions that have been sent ahead of time, and we also have some that are coming up in the chat. Yeah, Leanne, I'm good to facilitate this, but if you see any that I miss in the chat, that'd be helpful just to flag them or put them on the document for me. But there's one that came through the chat around academic references. Are they restricted just to professors? And also, I'm looking for a second academic reference. However, I'm having trouble connecting with my professors online. Any tips from the panelists in terms of how to connect with those referees, people who would be providing reference letters? I can start by just a general comment in relation to the first question. The academic references with respect to your PhD, if you're interested in applying to the PhD program, we really do need academic reference letters, master's thesis supervisors, or master's course master's instructors would be expecting, or should be expecting, a request from their students to write letters of references. For master's student, it's ideal to have academic references from professors, but if you've been out of university for a while and have been working in the field, then certainly there's opportunities to include professional references or people who can speak to some academic basis of your profile, I guess. But maybe I'll ask the panelists to speak to the second part of that question, which is about connecting with professors and tips for reaching out to those potential referees.
Can I quickly jump in, Brian, with this last question? So my advice would be to reach out to your referees as soon as possible. Sooner is always better. I think Brian always says that, right? And what happens is, I'm pretty sure that your professors or your supervisors can be, first of all, they can be busy, but at the same time, they can also give you some great tips in regards to your application. So reach out to them as quickly you have started thinking about applying. Don't delay.
Just to add on to that as well, I do think it's really important to be connecting. So if there is a specific professor that you're interested in getting a reference letter for, that you're taking a class with in the coming terms, make sure that you're really actively kind of getting involved and connecting with that professor or the TA for that course, just because it is easier for a professor to be comfortable giving you a reference letter when they do feel like they have that personal connection, and when they do feel like they can speak to more than just kind of the paper grade work that you get. So being active and contributing in class is obviously one way of doing this, to ensure that you're kind of getting your name and your face more known, which I also recognize is kind of a more difficult thing to do with today, what's happening and everything being online and virtual. So just making the time, utilizing, your professor's office hours or your TA's office hours to kind of connect, especially if there's not like a lot of asynchronous learning happening in the classrooms, is another good way to kind of, again, to start building that relationship.
Just to add on to Jalen's point, so if you've been in the field for a while and are having a hard time getting a hold of professors, which is something that my brother just went through. He just applied and got admitted into a master's program at University of Waterloo. He connected with a lot of them through LinkedIn. And a lot of times they just need a reminder in terms of the context that they know you from, and having that visual of like using a format like LinkedIn to kind of connect with them can kind of remind them of how they know you, in what context. And a lot of times, for references, a lot of my references have asked for adding like supplementary information. So like your current resume or CV, kind of your letter of intent for the program. And that can kind of help them draft something for you if they agree to be your referee.
Great. Yeah, I would also add, from my perspective as a faculty member, like if students that, this happened this past year, where a former student who went through our undergraduate program reached out about a reference letter to enter into our master's program, and his name didn't ring a bell. He sent me his CV or his resume. And he also indicated what courses he was in, so I could go back and see, his grades in the course, and see that he did well. And so that sort of providing that broader context that Haley mentioned was really, really helpful. When you're going out to connect with instructors about reference letters, make sure you're choosing the ones that you did well in, and that have some familiarity with your interests, right? So somebody who, if you're a graduate of a recreation and leisure studies program, and are applying to our programs, and that's reach out to a recreation and leisure studies prof, and one who you did quite well in the course. The other question here: do you need to secure a supervisor before entering the program, or is this something that can happen in the first year? So I touched that a little bit, but maybe one of the panelists would speak to that. Well, from their experience.
I can speak to it a little bit. So as Brian mentioned, you don't specifically need a supervisor. You'll be kind of assigned one if you come in without one. But one thing I will say about kind of our department and the classes that you'll take is that your thinking will change so drastically, and the things you become interested in may change and shift as well. And that's okay. That's kind of the point of taking the classes. So there have been times when I've been like peers who have completely just shifted their idea of what they're interested in, and therefore their supervisor needed to change for that aspect as well. But you can also, when you're thinking about your supervisor and that relationship, it's also important to know that you're never really kind of, I don't want to say stuck, that sounds bad, but you're never really stuck under one supervisor, because all of the faculty are so great at kind of knowing their strengths and weaknesses and their interests. And so it's just kind of about really getting to know what you're interested in and who's going to best support that. And the faculty are there to support that as well. So.
I can add something to it, that I came here as a coursework student. So after that, I have found that I need to do my research on a thesis-based program. So right now, I'm currently looking for supervisors from starting within this department. So right now, I'm starting in the department as well as looking for a supervisor for my thesis option, so that we can both apply together, so that I can switch in the next term. So this is not something that you have to do before. A default supervisor will always be allocated to you. After that, you can switch to another supervisor.
Great. Okay, so there's a question here. Are there opportunities for PhD students to be appointed in various research centers, either in the University of Waterloo or outside? So research centers or research, maybe we could speak more generally to students' involvement in research programs or research networks that specifically supervisor is part of, or that other members of the department are part of?
I can sort of talk, not necessarily about research programs in industry being connected to, but as a result of being connected with my supervisor, she was really great about getting me a grant that allowed me to expand my network. So prior to COVID, I was in Australia working with scholars there, and they have different connections in terms of what types of research that they do. So they've brought me on board with a few of their projects. So it is doable, and our department's really supportive of kind of expanding your network in order to kind of work on projects, not just within the department and your supervisor out in the community, which a ton of our faculty member, Brian included, does a lot of work with various kind of organizations within different communities. But also kind of getting you that international exposure, especially kind of at that PhD level. So I would say that's probably a discussion that you'd have with your supervisor, and going back to kind of that last question, building that relationship with your supervisor so they have an understanding of kind of what you want out of the program, but also what their interests are in, I think is very important.
Yeah, I would just reiterate some of what Haley was saying. I think what's so unique about our graduate programs is the faculty are really supportive of you kind of getting out of the program what you want to get out of the program. So what it's important to you and what's going to further you in your career, wherever that takes you after graduation. So for me, it was important to be involved in community and to be involved in different research projects. So again, I had these conversations with my supervisor to share with her that this is something I really want to prioritize throughout my graduate experience as well. So I've been connected with like research projects out at Baycrest in Toronto. I've been connected with research projects that are happening in Concordia University in Montreal. So there's definitely kind of a lot of room and support for that. You just kind of, again, as Haley mentioned, have those open conversations with your supervisor about what you're wanting to really take away from your experience and what you need as a student to be successful in that, and thinking about what that's going to look like for you as you continue through the graduate program, but then also as you graduate and move into whatever career you move into.
May I just add one more thing? Also talk about the last question. I just have shared a link in our chat box. I hope everyone can see that. This is a link to our Rec and Leisure. And if you scroll down, you're going to see there is a portion that talks about areas of study to be able to actually connect and align yourself and your letter of intent with a particular faculty member. I would suggest that you go through those areas of interest, and as soon as you click, you're going to see the name of the faculty members with their list of works and their area of interests, and that will be extremely valuable as you build your letter of intent, and hopefully one of them will become your supervisor, in my case, for sure.
Okay, I'm going to move on to a couple other questions here. Thanks for your respective responses there, panelists. There's a question here. I'm a student in a Bachelor of Science Honors Agriculture. Can I apply to the course for graduate study with and so I'll address that one quickly. If you're Bachelor of Science Honors Agriculture, Bachelor of Science, we're not going to turn your application away without reviewing it. If you have some background in social science, arts, or humanities courses, that would certainly be an asset. But if you're interested in the coursework masters or the thesis masters, it's really your study, your proposal statement, your written statement as part of that application would carry a lot of weight in terms of how your interests align with our department and what our program's all about. So I'd encourage you to look at the information around on our websites about the program and the aims of that, and look at ways of identifying how your interests and background are congruent with our program. So securing a supervisor, that's the next question. We talked about that. You do need to secure or connect with a supervisor prior to your PhD program. Prior to your master's thesis program, it's ideal if you do. In a coursework program, you do not need to connect with a supervisor ahead of time. And then there's a question here about careers. What kind of careers do your PhD graduates often go into? I highlighted those. Are there these mostly academic jobs, or does the program provide some flexibility in terms of career paths students take? And so maybe I'll adapt the question and ask the panelists to just comment on their respective choices of going into master's or PhD programs, and what sort of career opportunities they have in their minds in terms of pursuing those degrees.
I can start.
Thanks, Jalen.
You're welcome. I think the tricky part is to remember that you would think at a PhD level I would have figured out what I want to do, and I still don't. So just beware and mindful of that, that you learn so much about yourself through the graduate program that your kind of understanding shifts so much. For me, part of me could 100% see me moving into an academic position. I've grown to love teaching more than I kind of imagined I would when I first started my graduate studies, through different TAs that I've taken on, different co-lecturer positions. So I definitely have kind of taken more of a love to teaching than I thought I would. But I also want to very much work in the field, a part of me as well. So specifically, I'm interested in therapeutic recreation and uniformed first responders, and connecting in community settings. So I think what's kind of unique about the program and the department is that it does offer you kind of a place to have one foot in both, and kind of navigate your own path. There's no right or wrong way of doing things. I don't believe you have to want to specifically be a professor or be an academic to complete a PhD, but it is often something that you kind of navigate as you go. So that's my runaround answer of saying I don't really know what my career is going to look like. I definitely feel like there's a lot of doors and opportunities that can open up from graduate school and from graduating with a PhD, whether it be teaching as a lecturer, whether it be more research academic position, or for me working in field of practice in terms of recreation therapy, or registering as a psychotherapist and working within clinical settings. So or my idea would be kind of blending all of those together. So yeah, there's just a lot of opportunities, and my answer kind of does speak to a lot.
Yeah, that's a whopper of a question considering the times we are in now. But I think what I've taken from the program is the more open-minded you are in terms of where it can take you, kind of the more doors open for you, right? So if you have an interest in teaching, you can take advantage of a lot of the Center for Teaching and Learning programming. That can help you, whether you want to teach at kind of the college level or university level and become an academic. We've had people who've gone out and worked in industry, various kind of research settings. So I guess for those of us, me and Jalen are both in our third year, so we're kind of approaching that point where we need to start thinking about these things. But I think at the end of the day, our faculty have a lot of connections, both in academia and in industry. And then just important to remember, if you're pretty set and established in your life in a certain area, so if I went and did a program at Waterloo, I have no intent of leaving Waterloo, that definitely narrows your opportunity to kind of work in that field of academia. So just being open-minded and willing to potentially move to different places to gain that experience, prior to perhaps getting a position at somewhere that's a little more research intensive and established, like the University of Waterloo.
Arifin, how about you with respect to the master's course? What sort of career ideas do you have in terms of your plan?
Yeah, I'm coming from a hospitality background. That's That means I've been working in hotels before I thought about starting my master's. I did my graduation in tourism and hospitality. So it's basically a hospitality centric education. And then I worked in hospitality industry for 6 years. Then I felt like I need to work on something that's my passion, which is sports. So that's why I started looking for masters, and I thought that this department is perfect fit for me. So I'm currently looking to study sports-based topic. So after that, actually I'm as a new student, I do have some ideas for my future plan. First of all, I'd like to involve in any sports setting, such as sports teams of North American sports association, something like that. Maybe in hockey league, maybe in soccer. Especially, I'm into soccer. So if I can involve in those teams and as an analyst, so that's why I'm studying in this department. And also I have another open mind about start pursuing my PhD degree in future as well, so that I can be in the academic field as well. So actually I'll develop my interest more after studying, and then I'll decide and I'll look for the opportunity to go in various fields. So I'm actually in open-minded, and as well as I have a chance to go back to my hospitality field as well, right? So there are a lot of opportunities for me.
Great, thanks, Arifin. Tassif, any comments on career stuff?
Yeah, sure. Of course. So to begin with, for an example, while I was trying to apply for my master's program many years ago, I think I had a line there that I want to do more and do better. And during my master's program, I kind of found my passion related with what I'm doing now. For an example, during the time I was taking some course related with ethical management of tourism, sustainable tourism, and that point onwards, I started thinking, oh my gosh, for the last many years, as I was practicing tourism, many of the things that I did was not technically the correct way of doing things. So that has brought me here. So what I'm trying to say here is for PhD students, mostly follow your passion, what you are really, really passionate about, because it's a very long journey. You have to have some kind of a particular interest. And of course, it may evolve over a period of time. It may change. At least this whole program is going to definitely give you different type of lenses to look at the world differently. So that's possibly going to be my 2 cents.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we're at 1 o'clock here, and I'm just going to look at my questions and make sure that we've covered the ones that have come in from folks. We have one quick one that I can address. The question is, the number of admission. I read somewhere that the number of admissions depends on funding for the year. How do you assess this information to get a better sense of how many students are being admitted, and how many PhD students will you intake this year? So our targets for our PhD program specifically are, off the top of my head, are 7 PhD students at full-time per year. For the master's coursework, our targets are 10 master's coursework students per year, and our master's thesis 6 or 7. I think it's actually 6 PhD students, 6 master's thesis students, and 10 master's coursework students. Those are our targets, which is what we shoot for, but those we're not necessarily bound by those. So with the case of PhD students this year in particular, we had a wonderful group of applicants who had strong alignment with our faculty members, and so our PhD numbers for this year, I believe there were 12, so we're well above targets there. So again, with the research-based programs, the aging, health, and well-being and PhD program, the recreation and leisure studies PhD program, as well as the master's thesis program, we have some flexibility with respect to exceeding our targets if they're strongly aligned with our student our faculty members in our program. Okay, so I believe that is it. I think I want to thank those of you who attended and sat in on the session. I also want to encourage you all, if you have any questions, to reach out to Tracy Taves or myself. Leanne Zonneveld is online here and has been hosting this. She's a faculty liaison for graduate students and helps with recruitment and is a good point of contact as well. I want to thank Tassif, Arifin, Jalen, and Haley for being present today and sharing some insights from the student perspective, and wish you all a happy rest of your Tuesday. Thanks to everyone.